Hello, everybody, and welcome to the As You Are podcast. My name is Leslie Vandergant. I am the founder of Enso Coaching and Consulting, and we are here with Kathleen and Libby, two of our amazing coaches, and the one and only Nakia.
Hello.
Yay! Round of applause.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, we're so happy you're here. So funny story. I think you guys all know this, but to our listeners out there,
tell 'em.
Nakia and I knew each other we met each other in 2005.
Correct.
So 19.
Yeah.
No, that was
19
like
years
last
ago.
week. I don't know what you're talking about.
19 years ago, when we were both in Zach's Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Correct.
Yes, and this is not like do the
Well,
thing
there's
with
no
film.
There's no picture. It's just
There's no
Rocky Horror
picture.
Show.
Yeah. Oh, yes,
Right.
you're right. Rocky
Yeah,
Horror
Rocky Show.
Yeah. Oh, what a nuance! I didn't even know that nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's never. Yeah. For the stage show, it's just show.
Rocky Horror Show.
Wow,
Yeah.
I'm learning
I did
so
not-
much already.
I actually did not know that. So in the show, I was Janet, and you were
Eddie.
Eddie, the
Meatloaf.
meatloaf
Oh.
character.
Yes, I was gonna say,
I always
as
say
soon
the
as you said
meatloaf
that.
character.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yeah, exactly.
we could like recreate a little bit of that here, but like Janet, Libby,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Janet, Libby, Kathleen.
Oh my God. So good.
It's so good.
I already feel like
so
I'm on
long time ago,
stage.
like you were chopped up and then
Yeah.
fed to us, and then
Yeah.
I was running around in panties. So things have
Wild
they
times.
changed?
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
I
I
don't
was
know.
like,
What are you expecting today?
I have to say though, honest to goodness, and I'm not just saying this to be nice. You really don't look like you've aged at all.
Isn't
I
it?
agree.
Yeah.
That when I called you on the way here and your picture popped up on my phone, and I was like,
Hold on.
yeah, what
You were
is it?
So
It's a different kind of time.
Just like a
kind.
death becomes her kind of thing or something? Like,
Please.
What
I
kind
mean,
of
get
deals did you
closer.
do?
Yeah, no, get closer. I'll, you can see all of it up close.
you look
but
great though.
Thank you.
And
As
that was
do
a fun
you.
time.
It was such a fun. I mean, we
Yeah.
had just a really good time. It was like a silly show. There was so much going on at the time, and then like after that show, I think that was Nakia's rise to fame, right?
I don't know about that, but when I joined that cast, I was in the first band that I was in Austin called the Small Stars. And Dave Stakely had seen me in that performance at some point. And then Shannon, who was the stage director for The Music Man, we put like Robin Lewis directed it at the Paramount for just a stage like reading production. There was some choreography, of course, because it was Robin.
Yeah.
But I was Marcellus in that show, and Shannon, I think, mentioned to Dave that I had been doing good in this show, and he was like, "Oh, I saw him in this other band," and so I ended up auditioning for that, and I just found a video of our rehearsal.
What?
Yeah, I somehow have a video, and I put the DVD in and I ripped it in to digital. So I have to put it up for a Throwback Thursday or
please.
something.
Oh my
Watch
gosh, you're gonna have to
party.
send it to me.
Yeah,
That's a long
I'm
time
pretty
ago.
sure it's all of us, including Joe York, who
Oh, I know.
sadly
Rest in
passed
peace, yeah.
not long
Such
after
an
that.
amazing, talented
Yeah.
person. I know. Well, and then we had a chance to run into each other again because I don't even remember who it was that arranged
Scott.
Scott. That's right.
Yeah, or
Arranged
Ian,
to get
yeah.
together. Yes, arranged a little get together
Yeah.
when Zach had a remount of Rocky, and so it was really nice. It was the first time I had seen you since then.
It really was so nice. And I remember in the audience that night, both like being transported back to our production, but also kind of being transported back to the first time that I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show. I was in the 10th grade. I was, really trying to like be out of the closet, but was super definitely in the closet in Northeast Alabama. And the first time I watched it, I was with my then boyfriend at the time, who, of course we were like super hush hush or whatever. And so I was just like in tears half the show because number one, that cast of that new show was so great.
Oh, they were amazing.
They were really good and the production was great. But then we just had all these memories associated with it,
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you talk about thinking about that film and seeing it for the first time, like kind of going through those emotions, like what kind of stuff came up for you?
I mean, for me, it was this really, sweet kind of happy place for me because I can vividly remember watching that movie and feeling like, oh, these are some of my people, like I think I get this, Plus my boyfriend at the time, his name was Brad.
Oh,
So that didn't hurt, And so all night I just kept going like, Brad.
Yeah.
Brad? But I think that there are films, plays and musicals like that so many queer people see and experience, and it's the first time they kind of see themselves on
the representation.
Yeah. And of course, I think that original movie came out in 76, maybe, which is like I was a year old when it came out.
Wow.
But, it doesn't matter when you get to it. It's still there waiting for you,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I really hope we can continue to see more of those productions put on and more of those films and movies coming out. I just co-directed a horror movie that's coming out this year, and it's like what we think is the world's first queer, sex positive, fat positive horror movie. And again, part of what that particular production company in New York is all about is making sure that fat people get representation. They're very proud to be fat. They love their bodies, and they want everybody to see that they can do everything else just as good as anybody else can.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, so what is it? Can you tell us the name of the film?
No, absolutely. Okay. It's called A Taste of Youth.
Yeah,
nice.
And it's a little bit of a mix of kind of a psychological thriller and with some horror elements to it. And without giving too much away, I will say that basically there's a lot of this cause and effect of what happens when people put so much emphasis on trying to stay young, trying to look pretty.
Woof.
Hey,
that's good. Wow.
Yeah.
I know.
So,
speaking of horrors,
especially in the gay community, there's this real stigma amongst certain groups of gay men who, you've aged out, you can't do this, or your body isn't, good enough to be at this event, that kind of thing. So
true.
Yeah,
that's so true.
So really excited about that. But representation really does matter across the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just want to almost get this tattooed on me? It doesn't matter when you get there. It's still waiting for you. What was it you said? That was so flipping beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It sometimes it takes time. Usually it takes time to find your people, to find your village, to find who you are. But we're all out here waiting for you, that whoever it is that's your people, that's your scene, it's waiting for you. You just have to kind of keep going.
Right.
And as a kid, when that movie came out, I had already tried to come out of the closet once and had a lot of physical violence towards me and a lot of, rumors and hate speech and all of that kind of stuff that had happened. Brad and I at that weekend actually were basically secretly hanging out together. I had invited him. I worked at a record store. I was the assistant manager at a record store, a little tiny record store in Fort Payne, Alabama. And my boss was taking me to this record store convention, and Vanilla Ice was going to perform, and Johnny Osmond was going to perform.
All right.
And
something for everyone.
yeah, it really was. But more importantly, the hotel that we were staying at, let me back up. More importantly, Poison and Warrant were going to be performing in that same city, and that was we were both huge hair metal fans.
Oh my god!
And when we got to the hotel, I don't even know how I figured this out. I've always kind of been like a sleuth, but somehow I figured out that Warrant was staying in our hotel, and so we literally waited up until they got back from the show in the limousine, and I had my things with it. He got all that stuff signed. And then Janie Lane, rest in peace, took me and my boyfriend at the time, 16-year-old boys, into a bar and bought us tequila shots.
Yep.
And I was like, okay.
Different times.
Yeah,
right, totally. And hung out with us.
Wow.
I mean, it's so random, But anyway, we get back a day early and I rented that movie. My dad was a manager at a video store. And I rented that movie and we watched it. And it was really this little reprieve for us, that we were all we kind of had.
Yeah.
All of my older friends who were queer had already graduated.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like one of the lone people, and Brad definitely was not interested at all in talking about it in public, where I was like, no, I want to be gay and proud. So it is important, you just got to stick with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's leadership, right? Like in
a way. Yeah. It is funny. I did once, I'd say, God, it's probably been 20 years, but I got a message on Facebook. Facebook was just starting up, so it's been a long time. But I got a message on Facebook from a gay kid who was going to my high school, who basically was graduating high school, and sent me a note to say, hey, I just want you to know that, like, because of you, my parents knew you and they told me about you and how you were, openly gay in school, and it helped me to be openly gay in school. And, I think that it's, it is important if you have the strength and you have the ability to be safe and do that, that, it does cause other people to say, oh, I can do that, And that is a form of leadership.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. When you say the word when you say the words have the opportunity to be safe, like what can you?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, again, this is Northeast Alabama, and of course, Alabama, along with sadly Texas, is got a lot of really hateful people. I most of the time I actually say just ignorant, because I think a lot of people they need to be enlightened, and then they won't be hateful.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
exactly.
There's a lot of people who don't understand, and in those cases, they're scared, and then when they're scared, they physically or verbally attack people and harass people. So it is important that you feel safe enough to be yourself. And if you can't, I'll never forget my aunt, again, rest in peace, once told me when I was a kid, a very small kid, she said, Nakia, you're very special. I want you to know if you ever get the chance to travel outside of Alabama, you have to go, because there's so much more the world has to offer than this tiny little town in Alabama. So if you don't feel safe where you are, then hopefully you can have or find the means to get yourself somewhere where you can feel safe and be yourself.
Love that so much.
I know.
So I want to talk about The Voice.
Yes.
So you were like season one,
Season
baby.
one.
Wow.
yeah,
OG.
runner up.
Semifinalist.
Semifinalist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was one other person ahead of me on
In my
team.
mind, you won. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were trendsetter season one.
Well, and I mean, to talk, because I want to talk about the music, because
Sure.
you're such an amazing musician, but also there was a lot around your sexuality and the queer
Sure.
community on that show, and I think it's a really important thing. Again, speaking
It's a
to
good
your
segue.
leadership, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was the first openly gay contestant on a reality TV singing show.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got there, just because of again, this is season one, so all I had to base my information on was American Idol.
Yeah.
So I assumed that, and there was also this show that had just happened that Mark Burnett also produced called Rockstar.
Mhm.
But what I assumed was going to happen was they were going to either try to keep that quiet, or they were going to exploit it in some kind of negative way or whatever. But very quickly, the reality producers who produce the interviews and that sort of stuff on the other parts of the show when you're not singing, they told me that when I said I had some, trepidations about that, no, you're going to be our show's love story. We want to be open about it. We want you to know. And so the very first time I appeared on screen, I'm walking down the street holding Robert's hand, my husband Robert's hand, who was then my partner. And the whole time it was, every chance they got, they always flew Robert out every week. He was on camera every week. Never once tried to say, oh, don't do this, don't say that, any of that sort of thing. And the crazy thing is here we are 25 or 24 seasons later, because they just ended season 25.
Wild.
And they just had the first openly gay contestant to ever win a reality TV singing competition.
Oh,
Asher, who was on Team Reba, won this spoiler won
Gotcha.
this season of The Voice,
Yeah.
and I thought, wow, how cool is it? And the really cool thing for me was I don't have cable, so I don't watch it live. I usually watch the clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting at my house on Tuesday, and I get a text from my old friend David Cotton. It says, "Great cameo on The Voice tonight." And I was like, "What?"
Mhm.
It's like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Well, they just showed you on The Voice. You look great."
Haven't aged a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I was like, "Wait, I look great? Do you mean I looked great?" Because he was like, "No, you look great." And it's like, okay, well, I don't know how to get this. So I, real quickly tried to see if I had any, streaming service that had it. I didn't. And so luckily my husband, Robert, this week is in Cupertino. He works for Apple. And so he's on the West Coast, and he remembered, because again, he was doing this every week. He remembered there's a West Coast feed
Oh,
that
nice.
comes later, even though it's live for us, they're going to see it later. And so bless his heart, y'all, he waited for it to start and then held his phone like this
Sweet muffin.
I love it.
Stop it.
until I came
What a
on.
winner.
That's
and
true
then
love.
filmed and when he finally called me back, he said, "My arm is so tired."
Yeah. Worth it.
But
So
it was
sweet.
this moment where they, basically did a recap of like, wow, we can't believe it's been 25 seasons. And so they went back and they started with season 1, obviously. And they're interviewing Blake. He said, "My favorite thing about it is the blind auditions, blah, 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 blah." And then they cut to me saying to Blake in his chair, because Blake and CeeLo turned around for me. I was on CeeLo's team. And they told us ahead of time, when you have multiple coaches turn around for you, it is your time to shine, because you are in the driver's chair at that point.
Right.
You have driver's seat. You are in the driver's seat at that point, and it's your chance to make good television.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I, did what I thought was the best thing to do. And I said, "Why should I choose you over CeeLo?" And then his, real knee-jerk quick response was, "Because he dresses like a peacock."
Yeah.
And
Oh.
CeeLo had just did the Grammys, I believe it was the Grammys, where he came out in the outfit that
Yes.
Elton John had wore with the Muppets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a big peacock outfit. And I said on camera, that to me, that's a great thing. They didn't actually use that, but what they did use was that "why should I choose you over CeeLo" part.
Uh-huh.
And not only did they use it this week, but leading up to my season of The Voice, it was on every commercial.
Oh, yeah.
So like, the thing where they tell you like, "Oh, don't tell anybody you're on the show until you're on the show." Well, that was blown out of the water for me, because I started being on all these commercials.
Yeah.
So it was really fun for me to know that they popped me in there.
Yeah.
And I will say on camera, for the record, that almost every other region that has a voice, The Voice Australia, The Voice Germany, The Voice France, Philippines, they all have The Voice All-Stars.
Mm.
We don't have The Voice All-Stars.
Oh my God.
Let's do that.
Gosh,
Let's
you
bring
need
it back.
a Voice All Stars.
Oh my God.
All right.
Yeah.
Who can I write
Fan
or call?
favorite. I know. Let's
I
do
don't know.
it. Where
Let's
it's
do it.
petition.
Listeners.
I'm ready. Let's do
I
it.
would love to go
Starts
back.
now. I
Yes.
know.
It's a
that'd be
different format,
amazing.
obviously,
Yeah.
because, it's the blind auditions. They already know who you are.
Yeah.
And it's smaller teams, but I think it would be really fun.
Absolutely.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And we
Brilliant.
should obviously have someone from season 1 coming
Yeah.
back.
Entertainment
Season
Weekly's
24.
most memorable contestant of season 1.
Wait,
Thank you.
I mean,
excuse
I
me.
believe it. I
I
believe
hope you
it.
have a big award hanging somewhere.
Yes.
Please. I
Wow.
love that. That's so
Awesome.
good. Well, I want to go because you had just mentioned like being a little bit, trepidatious about like talking about your relationship with
Sure.
your then partner, now husband.
Right.
And like, part of this is some, again, like being a leader, being somebody who's kind of standing up for other people, like you have to kind of stick your neck out a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
Scary.
what was that like for you? Can you talk through?
It was
kind of this-
scary for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, when The Voice came on season 1, NBC was the last in the rankings for ratings on television.
Mm.
And it literally saved NBC. I mean, it put them back in the number 1 spot. It was about 14 million people a week watching the show live. Especially once we got to the live rounds, you're on live television. It's totally different than all the pre-tape stuff. And I remember thinking to myself that everything that I had done at that point in my career, especially as a musician in Austin and as a band leader in Austin, had really led me to that point and was really serving me in that moment because, you know, every week you have to basically be the band leader because you're in front of the band and you're singing the song. All of the, you know, understanding how the music works, understanding what these people do, that sort of thing, knowing how to treat people, all of those types of things. But what I was not prepared for, but I did well with, was the reactions from both the live audience, because there's a big live audience in the room, regardless of if it's live or being taped, and the reactions of people in the world who were watching it and then tweeting. This is, you know, Twitter was just a thing starting at that point. We were the first show to ever have our like lower thirds have our, you know, our
Twitter
handles
numbers and all that stuff. Yeah.
So it was interesting. I had some people who, you know, would tweet you know, some crazy stuff or mean things. But the wild thing is at the time, this was 2011, Twitter was not this cesspool of hate and division.
No, it was kind of nice.
It was so much fun.
It was fun.
Everybody loved everybody. Celebrities interacted with regular people. Yeah. You know, it was, I made so many friends that I still have today from those days. But it was scary because I didn't know how people would react.
Right.
And I think that that's something, again, kind of going back to that, you know, no matter when you get there, it's waiting for you kind of thing. You really, it always reminds me of that advice. Like you just have to kind of like take the next right step. And that will take you to where you need to go. And in my case, I was literally just, you know, you remember that scene in Indiana Jones, with Sean Connery, the third one, I think, and he has to like put his foot out and hope that there's something there for him to land on. It's that kind of leap of or step of faith, you know, where you're like, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to try to be my authentic self in front of millions of people every week. Granted, there's a lot of inauthenticity as well because it's manufactured and they know exactly what they want you to say and they know how to get you to say it, which I had some issues with early on. You know, they tried to kind of like early on they were trying to go with this route like sugar daddy kind of thing or whatever with me and Robert, and I was like, no,
got it.
That's not gonna work. Quit asking me questions about that, you know. And even in my last week before I was eliminated, you know, like Carson said something about, you know, like, you know, talk to your husband, he's right here, or your boyfriend, he's right here in the audience. And I remember saying to him, you know, like everything that he's done, every sacrifice he had made helped to put me there. And, you know, I'm like crying on national television, talking to my partner at the time right there across from me. And I look back on that and I'm like, oh, that moment was like a huge moment for television because nobody had seen that in that setting before, you know?
Yeah.
And it still kind of chokes me up to see myself in that moment, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it still pisses me off that I lost.
No
kidding.
But
Look,
you know, the funniest thing that happened to me after that was about 6 weeks after it was over, I got a call from Universal Republic that I had been released from my contract and they weren't picking it up. Basically, when you sign up for these kind of shows, you sign up, you know, you have no leverage. So you either sign the stuff and go on the show or you don't.
Yeah.
And we were lucky that we had good attorneys that they hired for us because it's a state law in California, who got the deal kind of what they call beat up, basically, so that it was a better deal. And part of that better deal meant that if Universal knew they weren't going to pick up your option, that they had to legally tell you as soon as possible. For me, I think it was within a 6-week window or something. And I remember texting CeeLo and saying, oh man, I'm so bummed. You know, I just got the call. They didn't pick up my recording option. And my phone rang immediately. And he was like, congratulations.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what? And he's like, you don't want to be signed to a label like that. They're just going to forget about you. They've you know, and if you look, sadly, most of the people who have won The Voice or even, you know, finished, you know, high on the ladder, they've not done really that
Yep.
well. They get dropped almost immediately. I mean, even our winner, Javier Colon, he purposely like tried to get out of his contract until he did because they weren't doing anything.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
Speaking of like sticking your neck out, we also need to talk about the fact that you chose to sing a CeeLo song. With
I did. Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, that's again, like bravery, true authentic self, like sticking your neck out.
Well, again, the way that works, some behind the scenes tea.
Oh, yes.
The way that works is at the time they gave us a list of 100 songs to choose from. And then you pick I had to rate them 1 to 100.
Wow.
And I got 2 options out of my top 10. I was either going to sing Kiss on My List by Hall & Oates.
Yep. I knew right away which one you were talking about.
Yep. Or Forget You by CeeLo. And the way it worked then, and they, by the way, have cleared hundreds of more songs since then. So I can't imagine these poor contestants having to rate these other songs. But the way it worked back then was you then, before the blind audition, you go in front of the producers and you sing both songs. And then they were like, well, we think you should sing this one.
Gotcha.
And they were like, well, we think you should sing Forget You, which I was really excited about.
Yeah.
Because it was a huge hit.
Yeah.
At the time.
It was.
I mean, it's still a massive hit, but it was really big at the time. And that's actually what got CeeLo on the show. So when I came out and sang it, Adam did not turn around. Christina did not turn around, but they also have to, each of them give feedback. Sometimes it ends up on the show, sometimes it doesn't. And for Christina's, she was giving her feedback and she was like, blah, 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 you just had this, kind of like rough voice. And I said, it's okay. You're lost. Next.
Yeah.
And again, it was like a huge moment on television because and it got replayed and it got in the commercials. Because I got to sass Christina Aguilera.
That's like
brushed off.
That's the
Aguilera.
exactly Christina Aguilera is.
But I wanted her to be my coach when I went on the show.
Yeah.
She was my top pick because out of all 4 of those coaches, nobody knew who Blake Shelton was at the time.
Yep.
That show made him.
Yeah.
Adam Levine was just the singer from Maroon 5.
Right.
Okay. CeeLo had just had a hit with Forget You, but wasn't really, a big star yet. Christina Aguilera has been singing all of her life.
Yeah.
She was discovered on Star Search, the original voice, basically. She was a Mouseketeer. She actually
Look at your t-shirt.
I know.
So nice.
She actually has real experience in all of these areas.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, I thought that they were actually going to be my voice coach.
Oh.
But, behind the scenes, it's somebody else that's like warming you up and running you through stuff.
Good to
You
know.
do work with them and one-on-one sessions and stuff, but not as much as you work with the other coaches. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I want the best singer to
I
be
learn how
to
to
be
do
my
runs
coach.
for days.
So when she didn't turn around for me, not only was I like sassy with her, I was kind of pissed. I was
Yeah.
like, whatever, bye.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
it was
so
a lot
crazy.
of fun though.
That's awesome.
So, and hearing about this too, and we always talk about authenticity and I think the running theme already is authentically showing up in your emotions.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And how there are all these ways in which it does take bravery to show up authentically in your emotions, but it also can be celebrated.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
it does. And, I've spent the majority of my adult life in therapy in some form or another. And one of the biggest takeaways from all of that work is you always are going to get so much farther if you just be yourself. If you're honest with other people, if you're honest with yourself, and you really try to live your own authentic life, you're going to go farther. Things will happen for you. You'll have more friends. You'll have better relationships because it won't take you near as much time for people to figure out that they like you and want to be with you. Because a lot of times when you're not, let's say most of the time, when you're not your authentic self, then you end up with people and relationships and jobs and things where they think you're one thing that you've presented, but then it turns out you're not.
And then how hard is it to maintain that?
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. I mean,
Exhausting.
I think
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of yourself. Totally. Well, so in addition to all of this leadership that we have been seeing from you, like you do a lot for the Austin community. And I know that during COVID times, like you led some support with Austin musicians. Is that right?
Yeah. So just before 2020, in April of 2019, I took a Facebook group that I had founded in 2008, I think, that had amassed, 4,000 or 5,000 almost people in this group. Not a really big group by Facebook group standards, but I took this group along with myself and Pat Bukta and some other group members and basically turned it into a nonprofit called Austin, Texas Musicians. And our whole mission when we started it was to give musicians in Austin a seat at the table at City Hall, because all of these decisions are made about zoning, about noise ordinances, about, permits, all of these types of things that are directly related to our business that we weren't having any real say in, or there were people in place who, had been giving the appearance of helping us that really weren't. And so one of the very first things that we did was help create or help pass the ordinance that became the Live Music Fund, which is now a thing. And I was in that working group, and all of these things were kind of going on. And then COVID hit, and we immediately shifted into support mode to try to help people find money, grants, that sort of thing. One of the biggest issues that we were tackling at that point was, it wasn't probably 2 months in that we started seeing, venues closing.
Yeah.
And so we banded together with some other nonprofits in town to try to say, okay, we need to get some of this COVID money that's coming from the federal government and allocate it for live music venues, as well as for musicians. And we did help accomplish getting both of those things done. I sprained my ankle in the process at a protest, but it took a lot of work. It was easily some of the most emotionally taxing efforts that I've ever been a part of. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody thinks they know how things should be. During the peak times of COVID, especially in 2020, nobody had anything else to do. Except
what a great point.
Be on Facebook and complain about what everybody else was trying to do.
You're so right.
And my biggest thing with Austin, Texas musicians is I always say, you need to show up and speak up. That's the only way you're going to get things done. It requires the first part. You have to show up to do the work. And a lot of these people who were complaining and, lobbing, hateful things at me, saying this, that, or the other, in our nonprofit specifically too, they weren't showing up for anything. They just had opinions. They thought they knew how things should go or whatever. And it really did take so much out of me. It ruined what I thought was, good relationships with some of these people. I had people screaming at me on, a Zoom call, or, I had one guy who posted, something about there were no people of color at this particular event or whatever. I'm like, hello, I'm part Mexican. I'm the one leading the effort, and there were other people of color. So it was really difficult for me, so much so that by the time 2021 came around, I was like, you know what? I just need to take a break. I'm going to put out some music. I'm going to get back into acting again. I went to New York. I took a class with Betty Buckley.
Oh my God.
I had taken that first class in 2020. And I was actually in that class when they canceled South by Southwest and all this stuff. But I just said, I think it's in a good spot. Pat's got it, all these other people that we had kind of recruited to help. So you guys do it. I'll stay on the board for a while. I'm not on the board now, but I'll stay on the board for a while to help in that respect. But I can't be in the front. This is not the kind of attention that I want.
Yeah.
And, I think some people, said, oh, like good for him, we don't want, we won or whatever. But, the truth is that I won because I realized that it was harmful to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was not helpful to me to be in that position. And so, and it was distracting me from who I really needed to be. And I was like, you know what? I can see this again. Thank you, Sims Foundation. Thank you for my therapy. But I can see this, and I'm going to, actively choose to put myself first.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's so good. Well, do you have a
Oh
question?
no, I just like boundary setting. I feel like is so important, and I'm just thinking about. I was like, God, I'm just like crying over here subtly, maybe not subtly, but just thinking about the themes of being a leader, and then also being a leader and giving of yourself. That like boundaries are so important in that.
Yeah,
right. That it's like you've shown up for so many people in so many ways, and that like. Thank you, therapy. You got to show up for yourself first.
Yeah, the tendency to want to give and give and give.
I would be like up all hours of the night. Robert would be like, hey, are you coming to watch some TV? Or are we going to bed? What's, you've been in there on this, Zoom, or you've been working on this paperwork, whatever, for hours, and I was very committed to that whole thing. And I still think that the mission behind it is super important. I'm so proud of the work that I helped them accomplish, that they're accomplishing now. They're still doing really great stuff. But I knew around January of 2021, I was like, no, I think it's time for me to take a back seat to this and put Nakia back in the driver's seat.
I love that. The thing that's so apparent to me is that you're so crystal clear about who you are intrinsically. And because of that, all of these other things can happen. You can show up on The Voice and you can sing a CeeLo song and you can bring your then partner on and stand behind that. You can, be out, semi out in high school.
Sure.
You can go lead this thing that is really important for these musicians and
go to New York and produce a film with people that are not represented and get that representation out there.
Yeah, it's all of these, it's so clear. It's so clear how because you know who you are intrinsically, you can make all these decisions and stand behind it, and also when to say no or enough's enough. Right?
It's so important. I mean, one of the very first things that my former booking agent and longtime dear friend and mentor, Raji Bear, she told me when I was working for her as her assistant at the time, she said, Nakia, there is so much more power in the word no. Anybody can say yes. Anybody can throw themselves into it. Anybody can try. But there's something really powerful about both knowing, no, I can't do that because I don't have the time or the energy or the means or the bandwidth, whatever it is. Or no, I won't do that because it doesn't fit me. It doesn't align with my beliefs. It doesn't, whatever. People hear that and then they go, oh, this person knows who they are. This person knows that, this person has character. This person's honest enough to tell the truth. Like I have this album that I'm getting ready to put out, and I've started sending the previews of the album to radio promoters so that I can see if I can find someone who, will take one or some of these songs to radio to try to get them on radio, which costs a lot of money. And it's really almost just like playing horseshoes, because you just don't know if it's going to land or not. No matter how good the song is, you just don't know.
Yeah.
And, just this morning, I got an email back from somebody who said, hey man, thanks for sending me the songs. I really like the album. I personally just don't think that there's anything on here that I could pitch to the genre of or format, radio format that this guy specifically works. He was like, I personally just don't think that I would be able to help you. Now, he could have said, give me your money and I'll just do my best, even though he knows that it wasn't going to work.
Right.
But that's the kind of person that I'll remember that.
Totally.
And then when I do have something again, I'll send it to him again and say, well, what about this one? Because I know he's going to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, can we talk about your new album that's
please.
coming out?
Yeah.
Talk about your new single that dropped on Monday, Tuesday?
It dropped yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Signal. It's the name of the single, which is now, I believe, the name of the album. I haven't quite finalized it yet.
It's happening right now.
It is. It is.
Right
now. It's really interesting because even that song was not originally titled that. My friend Jody Denberg heard that song. We went to see Margot Price in February of 2022, and we were driving back to his place for me to drop him off, and that song came on, and he was, digging it, and he said, and in the chorus, it says, "We can turn up the radio, let the music take control. We can turn up the radio, let the DJ save our soul." And he is a DJ for many, many years, one of the most beloved DJs probably in the world. And he looked over at me as I was driving. He said, "Nakia, you've got to change the name of that song. It can't be Turn Up the Radio." He said, "DJs are going to see that and just be like, ugh, whatever."
Good feedback.
And he said, "What about Signal?" He said, "I heard the word signal in there. I think that's a great song title." And he said, "I don't know of a lot of songs named Signal, And I said, "The Signal?" He said, "No, just Signal." I was like, "Oh, I like that." So I sat on that for a bit, and then I started, when I would save a version of it, I started naming it Signal. And then as I was getting ready to release this single, Signal, I know it's so weird. I was having to put into something about, future promo stuff or whatever. And what's the album name? I was like, oh God, now I got to come up with that right now. And I was like, you know what? I think Signal, both as a song and as an album title, really does say what I want it to say about this album, because it is this signal to the world, like, this is something new for me. This is a different direction musically that I've taken. This is music that I fully created, from the get-go in my own home studio, and then took to people to help me finish it out. So it's really personal to me in that way. And so that's why I decided to call the whole album Signal. But the song, it's a lot of fun. The whole album really has these very kind of heart on my sleeve references to great 80s, bands and songs, Stevie Nicks, Peter Gabriel, NXS, Roxy Music, so many great bands that I grew up listening to and loving so much. And so when I decided, I'm going to make this real synth heavy rock record, I said, I'm going to put the vibe in it that made me listen to the radio. Because I grew up in a time where if you wanted to save a song, you had to wait for it to come on the radio.
You got to
record it on a cassette.
Man,
the camera.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
So and then you had to hope that it didn't have a lot of static or whatever.
Calling the radio and asking them to play.
Well, and that's how I got into radio actually, because I would call so often, and the radio DJ would be like, "Hey, you keep calling all the time.
Do you want to
It literally started that way. My friend Jeff Donovan, we became friends that way. And then years later, I ended up working for him at one of his stations.
Oh, that's really
but
fun.
It is really exciting for me, the new album. It is really, it's also really scary because it is something really new. Because I spent so much time working for other people during the pandemic, and it was so hard to perform during the pandemic, and places were not. It took a while before they were starting to do regular shows again. I've really been out of the live music game really since 2020. I mean, the band that I have now, I started in the winter of 2019, and our first show was my annual birthday party at Saxon Pub, February of 2020.
Oh.
And then,
and then
we had all these other gigs booked and, didn't get to do it. So we've only, as a band, ever really performed 4 times in 5 years.
Wow.
So, the good news is, and this is kind of an exclusive for your show. The good news is that we are going to be doing a Tuesday night residency in July at Sagebrush in South Austin.
Let's all go.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're going.
We're there.
Yeah,
We're
and that's where I recorded the new music video for Signal this past Monday,
Congratulations.
which is it's going to look so good. I don't know if you saw my music video for Thrill-O-Matic, but
did.
the same director and producer, a lot of the same team behind the scenes.
So fun.
This video isn't really like what we would consider like a narrative video, which it has a storyline like Thrill-O-Matic does. This is just really like real pretty to look at.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that.
That's
Music
how I
video.
describe you.
Thank
Checks out.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So it is scary though. And I think it's both never been easier and never been harder to be an independent musician.
Yeah.
Because you can literally reach millions of people anytime,
Mm-hmm.
but you also are really, unless you're at, a level that you're, selling out theaters, and I'm talking like, ACL Live size theaters, Paramount even size theaters, everything that you're doing, you are doing. Because as I learned many years ago, nobody wants 0% of $0.
Yep.
And most of the money that you make goes back into making more money. And so until you get at a point to where you are making money and then people come to you to try to take some of your money because they want in.
They sure do.
It's you have to do all of it.
Right.
And so, I'm the publicist. I'm the social media person.
Owner.
Yeah. Oh, wait a
all of
minute.
it, and it can be very, very overwhelming because, we could all take out our phones right now and open our TikToks and Instagram. And in the time that it took us to take out our phones and open them, millions of people just uploaded their own TikTok or reel,
Absolutely.
and Spotify and Apple Music, get hundreds of thousands of songs that come to them a day.
Yeah.
So it is really, the internet definitely kind of like democratized so much for music, but now it's like, wow, you really got to be, look at the people on TikTok that are blowing up right now that are, like they're just like doing the same thing over and over again in their rooms, whatever. And like, I just can't bring myself to do that yet. Now, I just read an article about how, I don't need to look at this as like a task or something negative. I need to really embrace it. I need to have the gratitude about it. And I try to do that. I really do. But there are days where it's just like, oh God, I've got to make another reel.
Yeah.
What am I going to say this time that's different? How can I make this fun?
Yeah.
And then once I shoot it, then I have to edit it and all of these other things. Now, in the world of podcasting, which has really come up fairly quickly in the last 6 years, I would say. It's been around for a long time, but there are, especially in Austin, a lot of places like this studio that we're in.
Yeah.
Fantastic setup.
Yeah. Oh, we love it.
They're
we love
amazing.
it.
Shout out,
Really?
record ATX.
Yep.
Really
Follow those
great
guys.
crew. Looking around,
Everything
these
is
are all,
gorgeous.
everything looks
friendly.
great. The equipment is top notch.
Yeah.
Things work.
Yeah.
This isn't
break it to
this
test.
isn't falling down, or whatever. And that is something that, especially in Austin, that I've been trying to advocate for the last 15 years or so. Is like, we really need more spaces like this where bands can come in and put on live shows or put on live streams or whatever. In LA and New York, they have these rooms that are half this size, that are just like green screen cyclorama rooms where people are just doing their cooking shows and doing all of this stuff. And you just run them by the hour, and they come with an engineer or whatever. So we definitely need more of that kind of thing, but it is a lot of work.
It
is a lot of work.
And it's a lot of money. It is not cheap at all.
Yeah.
No,
And
I know.
everything is getting more expensive. I mean, today when I was leaving the studio, Kevin Connor, the program director at Sun Radio, he was like, "Oh, this is my favorite peanut butter," and I was like, "Oh, that's nice." He was like, "Yeah, when I went to buy this peanut butter, there was a jar of peanut butter the same size beside it. It was $7." And I was like, "Yo,
that's peanut butter. It's peanut butter.
Peanut
butter.
People shouldn't have to spend $7 to enjoy peanut butter."
Yeah.
And
no,
it immediately always puts me again in this state of gratitude where I'm like, oh, wow, I am so privileged that I can afford things, that I can do things. I cannot fathom what it is like for people who cannot do that, who don't have the ability to just walk into a store and buy bread and peanut butter or whatever. And, the wild thing is, back to like TikTok and social media, so many of these people you see on social media, a lot of these people are, all they do is they're at home doing this because they don't have any other place to go or any other thing to do. And this one phone that they have is all they do. And sometimes they really blow up and they end up, kind of like having these, rags to riches stories, which is great. But I also worry a lot too that like it really puts this idea in people's heads. And this is why to me, I believe there's so much hatred and division online is people see like, oh, they can get popular by doing that. People will pay attention to them by doing that. So I should do that.
Exactly.
And again, this goes back to, no, what you should do is be yourself, be kind to other people, and try to do something that's positive for the world. And hopefully we'll see more of that. But it's a rough time to be human.
It is hard. It's hard. There's a lot to navigate around like this, like exposure to so many things and ideas and creative things and heat.
Yes. And then freezing cold. It's like hello. Like, oh my God, climate change is real.
Yeah. I mean, but we don't, we don't have the access or enough time under our belt around like what social media is doing and like access to all of this information and AI, like how are we as humans supposed to navigate around all of that? And I think you have, not to pat you on the back, Nakia, I think you have like a really strong foundation for what that looks like, which is like really know this
authenticity
and just start there. Because I think if we can get clear here, then all the noise that happens outside, we can make decisions around that versus what we like to say, being a jellyfish in the water and just floating around whichever way the current.
I love that.
But again, that's the easy part.
That's the easy part.
100%.
Whichever way the water is
the
going.
whale.
But,
and I think
really trying to pushing against the current because you're clear and solid around that is what's going to align you to your own values, right?
Yeah. And the more people that are, authentic and especially in underrepresented communities, it's so nice to be able to see like that person is authentically themselves. I don't have to be this, I don't have to show up in a way that's not authentic to me. I mean, I think it's great for everyone, but especially in, people that don't see themselves maybe every day on
and
TikTok
in the world
or in the world
or being inundated with things. But anyway, you
Don't knock over the table.
Yes, flip a table. Oh my God.
You are amazing.
You are amazing. Yes. Can I ask a question? Just because I'm sitting over here and I love tattoos. I'm always so curious. And I've been reading your tattoos and seeing them. And I would just be curious, like, which are the ones that you return to regularly? That because for those of you who can't see it because it's a podcast and it might not show up on the videos,
right?
There are so many messages that you have
these
just
are messages to
written.
myself.
I love
it.
Which are the ones that you find yourself returning to most?
I would say this one for sure. This is the first 3 steps of the 12 steps, basically. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, and the way that I have experienced that life is that these 3 things repeat themselves in the next 3 steps and the next 3 steps. But if you're honest with yourself and with others, again, you're going to go far. If you're open-minded to things that are different than what you might know or experience or be comfortable with, but really the real key one here is, do you have the willingness to do what it takes to, again, like take that next right step? So that one's really important to me. This is actually CeeLo's handwriting. We got tattoos together, and this says "Confidence becomes cool." This is something he told me when I was on the show.
Man.
Love that.
And again, there's this is something kind of from 12 Step as well, which is there's this this idea of like fake it till you make it. Like you might not be 100% on board with this side or the other, but if you have the confidence in yourself that you can do it, then that will show out in the rest of the world. Then I would say probably this one. This is lyrics from a band that's recently sadly disbanded, but they were called Quiet Company, and this is off an EP that they put out called Songs for Staying In. And this says, we make our lives worth living when we love each other.
Oh.
And truthfully, when I think about this one, I think about how hard it was on me when I got this tattoo. I was in the middle of a really rough time where some people that I thought were my close friends had turned their back on me and were, honestly, it felt like I was back in high school again. There was lying happening about me, and, they were going out of their way to try to spread this misinformation and being really, really mean-spirited toward me. And this is right before I was on The Voice. This was in 2009, 2010. And I'll never forget, I was driving from South Austin on 183 coming back towards the house in Windsor Park. And this song came on, and the song is called The Biblical Sense of the Word. And when it gets to this part, which is this kind of refrain that he's singing, Taylor singing over and over again, I just like lost it in the truck. It's just like really broke down, because like that to me is so central to who I am. So such a core part of who I am, that my life is better when I love other people, and when I love other people, then the next part of that though is that I have to be willing to let them love me back. And that's really hard work, but when I think about that time and those people and how miserable they are today,
this is the forget you. Yeah.
I think, it seems like such a long way off, and like such a pebble that was thrown into a vast pit of rocks that I don't even have time to even think about those things. But when I do, I have the gratitude to know that, like, no, I did what was right for me. I stood up for myself, and I removed myself from that situation.
Yeah.
I removed myself from that friendship, because no friendship, no job, no relationship is worth being in if it means that you can't truly be who you are. And it's definitely not worth being in if people are picking on you and being hateful to you or trying to make you something that you're not,
Yes.
I just adore you.
Oh, thank you.
This is so fun.
Thanks. It's been fun for me.
You never know like how aligned somebody's going to be with kind of like the stuff, because we talk about this stuff all the time. Like this is our world.
Yeah.
And it's like
so many good
we're going to bring Nakia on because he's cute and the song's good. And like, we want to catch up and have a good time. And like, man, you took us down some really emotional and real things.
Yeah.
And I think like the big takeaways are like really know yourself, like stand in your own skin and be strong there, and like,
and that takes work, y'all. It takes work.
It does.
It's hard, but
absolutely.
it's worth it.
Yes.
Tell people to hire a coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Listen, let me just say something about that. There are, I mentioned, Raji is one of my mentors earlier. There is nothing more powerful, in my opinion, in building yourself up. Yes, it's definitely powerful to know who you are and to figure all of that out. But let me see if I can remember this little phrase that I love so much. It is, oh, wait a minute. It's going to take me a second to remember it. It is, there's so much power and there's a little cute little phrase that I had for this, but I can't think of it. But there's so much power in consultation, not that you want to go to people and say every decision you make, hey, is this the right thing or whatever? But if you can find someone or people in your life that you can trust to say, hey, this is where I am right now. This is where I want to be. Is there a way that you think, like, let me tell you all of the things that I'm doing. Let me tell you where I'm at and all of this stuff. And then with your experience, what do you think that I should do or could do to kind of get there? And even then, you're taking this idea that, from someone else, it's going to take you doing the work. But I mean, God, there's so many people in my life who have come into my life at the right time, whether it was they just happened to appear or I sought them out. And, if you're listening to this podcast and you think to yourself like, oh, I really admire so-and-so and, but they would never want to talk to me or whatever. That is not true. You should really, you have no idea how many times that I have cold called somebody, slid into their DMs, all this kind of stuff, or, literally saw them in person. And, I've always said, if you don't ask for it, you can't get it.
Yeah.
So true.
And the worst thing they can say is no. And sometimes that's not the worst thing either.
Yeah.
We were talking about how important no is
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah. Sometimes it's actually what you need to hear.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you're on the fence about should I hire a coach, I say go for it. And the cool thing is that if it's not working, I say this about therapists. If you should date a therapist.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You need to go like 5 sessions. If after 5 sessions you're not feeling it, then move on.
Yeah.
Most, I don't know how y'all work, but most coaches that I've worked with or known in my life, you kind of have like the packages and things that you can kind of get into, but it's not like most people in those positions are smart enough to know that it might not always work.
Totally.
So you kind of, here's how you get in, and it might be a few sessions this way or whatever. Yeah. We're not going to tell you this. It's not like some kind of gym membership.
No,
that's right.
We're not
Right.
We're not locking you into life.
I mean,
No. It will cost you $1 million to leave, though.
I think I'm still like in a Gold's Gym contract for myself
somewhere
that I can't get out of. So.
I mean, right, like the message and like the alignment we're all feeling too is that like we are wanting people to show up authentically as themselves. We are wanting to be a good fit, and that like that's a two-way street.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I'm super grateful that y'all are doing this stuff. And so glad that you reached out, Leslie. It's such a trip to me.
Now we're going to be inseparables.
I know.
We're
the same age.
Graham said, she said she knows you. And I was like, yeah.
Yes.
I was like, yeah. And, I think that I just saw that you recently did a show with Adam, maybe?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did a little ditty with Adam.
Yeah. And I'm getting ready to do one.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm the devil in Damn Yankee.
No, we're going to all be there.
Yeah.
Come on out.
God.
I mean, we wanted Adam to be here, but
Yeah.
it's too bad, Adam.
Sorry,
Adam. We love you, though, Adam.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, we do love Adam. That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I know. Then
So
we're
I'm
just going to
gonna
get
be
on
there.
stage
Yes.
again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to be at your residency gig every
Oh
Tuesday.
my God, it's true.
It's the same month.
I love it.
It's
I
the
love
same
that
month.
you
In
were
fact,
getting out
I have to
there.
go to rehearsal. I have to leave rehearsal early on the first 2 Tuesdays of the month so I can make it to my residency.
God.
But Adam
The
was like, no,
life
it's
of a
fine.
performer.
Yeah, you're going to be, I can't wait to see you in your band. I can't wait to see you as the devil.
All the things.
All the
Apple,
things.
I think it's Applegate. I think it's
Yeah.
his name.
Okay.
Yeah, for Damn Yankees.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's me.
well, thank you. We love you.
Yeah, I love
so
y'all. Thanks
appreciate
for having
you.
me.
Thank
So
you.
great meeting you.
And then, as always, subscribe on all
Platforms.
podcasts, all platforms, and we will see you again soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.